Welcome to My Healing is Your Healing, a podcast for the woman who is ready to stop performing and reclaim her voice. I'm your host, Celeste, and around here, we don't do surface level. We go deep. Each week, we'll explore concepts like self-discovery, radical honesty, and the kind of healing that rewrites your story from the inside out. This is a space for truth-telling, for remembering who you are, and for coming home to yourself, louder, braver, and more radiant than ever. So come as you are, and let's do this together. Let's begin. Welcome back to My Healing is Your Healing. I am your host, Celeste, and today we are talking about something that you do not usually see on Instagram. These are not highlight reels. They're not the glossy vacation photos with the polished smiles. I'm talking about the quiet rock bottom moments, whether they're the nights that you're laying in bed wondering if you can keep on going, or the mornings where you catch your reflection in the mirror and think, who even is that person? Or maybe it's an afternoon where you're laughing with your friends, but you secretly feel like you're disappearing on the inside. And most of us don't post those moments. Instead, we wear masks that are so convincing that no one really realizes how much we're hurting. And then when somebody does finally whisper, I need a hug, or I need help, we panic because we think, oh, shoot, if they're admitting it, they must be drowning. But why can't we normalize this? It doesn't always have to look like some dramatic movie scene where you lose everything. Sometimes it's the bottle of wine that you finished alone, or promising yourself tomorrow will be different. Sometimes it's realizing that you've called your ex for the 100th time, even though you swore that you would not. Sometimes it's simply the quiet ache of knowing that I cannot keep living this way. Something has to change. I have had my moments like that. In Phoenix, when nobody knew the truth, everyone saw Celeste, she's fine, she's successful, she's great. But I would go home and I would peel off that mask and collapse into tears. I felt like a fraud. I was alone in this black hole of unknown self. And I would always wonder if anybody would love the real me. And here's what I've learned. That rock bottom is not always the end of your story. Sometimes it's actually the beginning of finally writing a story that is yours. My guest today, Angie Hawkins, knows this intimately. 5 years ago, she hit her rock bottom, a suicide attempt that cracked open everything that she thought she knew about herself, her worth, and what it meant to be loved. And since then, she has rebuilt her life from the inside out. Angie is now an inner glow coach, the author of Running in Slippers, and a radiant guide for women who have already done the therapy, read the books, listened to the podcasts, and walked the spiritual paths, but still feel like something's missing. Her work isn't about teaching you to chase love or approval. It's about reclaiming the love and confidence that has already been inside of you all along. So in today's conversation, we're going to talk about self-worth, your inner critic, the power of taking off your mask, and what it really looks like to rebuild after rock bottom. Angie's story is going to be a reminder that you are never as alone as you feel, and that healing doesn't begin with someone else saving you. It begins with choosing yourself. So let's dig in. Welcome, Angie, to My Healing is Your Healing. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Celeste? Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. So I first want to get a little bit about your story. Um, who is Angie really? Because you've done some really incredible things here. You've moved across the country, you've jumped out of helicopters, and you've done like cliff jumping, right? But you said that your scariest leap wasn't physical at all. It was really just letting yourself be seen. So can you take us to a moment in your story here that kind of reveals about who you really are?
Yes. Well, I'll take you all the way back and kind of explain my childhood and why, like, where that came from. So I grew up in a home among other things, both of my parents were extremely emotionally unavailable, but my mom was also extremely critical. And as an adult, I understand what all that means, or even if I don't understand it, I can accept it. But as a child, I didn't have those tools to really make sense of the situation. So I developed this internal belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. And with that, I either well, like, there were, like, 2 themes in my life because, as you know, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and then your behaviors dictate your experiences, so I struggled a lot in life, and a lot of that had to do with these beliefs, and because I was heavily criticized, I would either if I had to do something, like, for instance, work or school or something that would be seen by other people, I had to be perfect, I was a huge perfectionist, I was the overachiever, and those things can be functional and healthy because there's nothing wrong with achieving, right? Or there's nothing wrong with doing things. But when your aim is perfection and not like my goal was basically to not be criticized. So that's where it became healthy and dysfunctional. But then also where I could, I would just hide, not speak up, not allow myself to be seen because like, to me, it's like, okay, then I'm safe from criticism. And that didn't work out very well because I would still somehow manage to get criticized. And if not by my family, like, that's just how society is. But I didn't really have the tools to cope with that. And because my entire life revolved around the external validation, it was soul crushing to get any kind of negative feedback because I wanted to have this perfect exterior, everything's fine. And where that started falling apart for me was in 2017, my boyfriend broke up with me, and then my dad passed away. So I was plummeted into this profound grief. And, we live in a just get over it society. So after a few months, people just expected me to be okay. And I was used to performing and pretending everything was okay. So that's what I did, even though I was miserable inside. Because my dad passed away in February 2017, and any memory I have for the rest of that year was basically feeling like shit and feeling like a zombie because I was just so miserable, but I didn't know what to do about it, and I was pretending everything was okay. And I actually not to get ahead of myself, but I ended up writing and publishing a book. And the idea came about during this time because my book is a memoir. It covers this 5-year train wreck period of my life that begins when my dad passed away. But I had the idea for the book during that time period because it's like I was grieving so hard, but then I would go on Instagram and everyone's posting all these perfect happy pictures, or even in real life, it's like nobody seemed to care that I was grieving and everyone else was pretending everything's okay. And I was like, there has to be other people who are going through this. And I'm like, why aren't we talking about this more? I just felt so isolated in my struggle. And I'm like, why aren't we talking about it? So I had this idea for this memoir, but to get my point across, it had to be extremely vulnerable because my point was we all go through shitty things. So here it is. Let's actually talk about it. But I was like, I could never do that because I was so terrified at allowing myself to be seen. So it was just this idea that I had, and would kind of write here and there, but it was never something that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. But then what happened? Oh, so in early 2018, I was tired of feeling like shit because I had felt like shit all year in 2017. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do something about it. But what I decided to do about it was I was living in Chicago. I decided to move to Hawaii. And it was good in the sense that I was like trying to be happier and have a better life and do something for myself. And it was totally out of my comfort zone for that time. So that was also good to give myself that practice. But it was not well intentioned in the sense that I was still like reaching for that external validation or reaching for things outside of me to be the thing that made me feel better. And so then I moved here, and you can't move away from your problems. So I had the exact same problems. And then I also developed a whole new set of problems. So for example, this was 2018. So it was before remote work was the trendy thing to do, but my job generously allowed me to move here and keep working remote. But at the same time that I moved, there was this huge management shakeup that threatened my role. So the first year that I lived here, I was terrified of getting let go. So I had constant anxiety about that. I had a really hard time making friends, which was never a problem for me in Chicago. So I didn't even anticipate that. And any of my closest friends were 4,000 miles away. So it just felt really lonely and isolating. And the other major thing that happened was, oh, how can I forget? I to prove that I was like all committed and all in on my decision, I bought a condo immediately. But then a month after I closed, a shared building pipe backflowed into my bathroom sink and I wasn't home. So my entire condo flooded. And then like the next 2 years was like thing after thing after thing. And then COVID happened, which so I don't think I have to explain why that made me miserable. And then like the straw that broke the camel's back was the end of a relationship during COVID. And so I was just kind of like at a point where I was like, I can't take this anymore. And not only that, I didn't see any hope for the future, which is a totally dangerous place to be, especially when you're lonely and isolated, like during COVID. So I intentionally overdosed on my anxiety medication. And I spent a day and a half unconscious in my bathroom, a day and a half in the hospital. I got out of the hospital and I called a friend and I told her everything that happened. And I ended with, I can't believe I didn't die. And her response was, it's not your time. And it was so profound. And it sent a cold chill down my body because I needed someone to point that out to me. And it really made me think. I was like, okay, I think I have a purpose. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out. And one of the first steps I took when I got out of the hospital, I was like, okay, I also need help. And I had tried traditional therapy. It had never worked for me. So I decided to invest in myself and hire a coach. And my very first call with my coach, and this was like a week after I got out of the hospital. So life still felt very fragile. And I can only imagine how I appeared to him on this call, but I'm like hanging on for dear life, just trying to make it through the day. But he asked me, he was like, if you could do anything and you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do? And the first thing I thought of was the book. And I was like, oh, I have this idea for a book. It's like a memoir. It's like really, raw and vulnerable. And the reason I want to write it that way is so that we can actually like talk about real life things instead of pretending everything's okay. And then I want to go on this book tour and travel around the world and have safe spaces for people to talk about these things. And I finished and he was like, did you notice how lit up you just got talking about that? And I was like, yeah, I actually feel really good. And so that's when I decided to write the book. But in doing that, I had to allow myself to be seen, which was terrifying, but I think it was helpful to a lot of people. So that's the long answer.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that vulnerable stuff with me because we all have this story and we all just need to be witnessed.
Yeah.
So I have like 10 thoughts that went through my head, but I didn't want to interrupt
that's
you.
a lot.
The first one is you and I are very much the same. When I was younger, I started playing violin when I was like 4, but every time that somebody would want to give me a compliment after playing, right? Because I could hide behind the violin.
Yeah.
I would go hide behind my dad.
I hid
And he would have to tell.
I would hide behind my parents all the time. Yeah.
And then every time that I wanted to say something, like even to the extent of going and trying on clothes, like it had to be perfect, planned and scripted. Hey, can I get a dressing room? I would cry because I didn't want to show up and just look like an idiot for wanting to go try clothes on.
Okay. I love this conversation because I was the exact same way. I hated talking to adults. Yeah. And I would try to like have a script, but like nothing goes by the script, like they're not going to say what you're expecting them to say. And same thing, I would just freak out and be like, I can't do this. That's so crazy. Yeah.
I've never had anybody else say that same thing. It makes me feel so good.
Yeah. I love this. Well, I don't love it because it's like actually a painful childhood memory for me.
Because you don't want to admit that you're helpless in those situations because you want to look like you have it all together, but you physically cannot bring yourself to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
So the other thought that it drove me to is you were talking about how everybody's highlight reels get shown online, right? But we never, and it is not socially acceptable to be like, hey, by the way, I'm having a really shitty day and just post this sad picture on Instagram.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Or if people do it, it's done in a clear intention seeking way. You know what I mean? I think for me, it was always because I didn't think anyone else was going through it. So I didn't feel like it would be relatable.
That's interesting. I also feel like because I've had those days, right, where it's like, I really wish that someone would just see me or witness me in those spaces. But if you were to say something like that, they'd be like, oh my God, Celeste is dying. Instead of like, I'm just having a bad day and I want to be seen in all of it.
I actually have this conversation a lot when talking about mental health. I think part of the problem is, like, for instance, if you tell someone, like, oh, I'm feeling depressed or whatever, their knee jerk reaction is they want to fix it. Like, so say you say like, oh, I'm feeling depressed today. They might like try to crack a joke or whatever to pull you out of the depression. But it's like, that's not necessarily what you need in the moment. You just need someone to hold the space for you to feel depressed, you know?
Exactly.
And so I feel like a lot of mental health conversations are misguided because it's like, yeah, I just want to like someone to like sit with me while I'm just feeling depressed, and that's okay.
But when you're in that space, it's so hard to like look somebody in the eye and be like, okay, this is not one of those fixing conversations. I just need you to sit here and listen.
Which is why it's hard, because when you're like, say, like just keeping on the theme of depression, if you're depressed, you're not really in that state of mind to clearly articulate what you need. So yeah, it's hard.
It's interesting. I mean, I've thought about that a lot where why can't it be more normal for us to just share what life looks like for real?
Yeah. And I don't know the answer to that. Maybe people are ashamed of like what that looks like, because that would also be admitting, hey, I made this mistake today. But you could argue, because all mistakes should be learning experiences for yourself. So why not share that with other people to prevent them making the same mistakes? So I think there could be a lot of learning opportunities that could be had from it.
I also feel like if you're not entirely, and I don't want to say healed, like, because healed is never a thing, it's always healing.
Yeah.
But when you're self-aware enough and you're able to like articulate what's going on in your life, you're more comfortable saying, hey, I'm not doing so well. That those people that are in that space do not want to admit that they're not okay
Yeah.
because they have that people-pleasing aspect and perfectionism.
Yeah, that's true. Because again, like I never, if I didn't hit rock bottom, I would never have like been freely talking about things like I am now. Because I still don't like allowing myself to be seen, but I do it. Like, because sharing my story can be uncomfortable sometimes, but I do it because I know there's other people struggling. So it's like, hey, first of all, you're not alone. And also, I had that feeling of hopelessness, so I know what it feels like. And it's, if other people are feeling that way, which other people do feel that way, it's like there is hope for the future. So even if one person saying that helps someone else, I'm willing to share my story. So
All it takes is you or somebody to have the courage to say something first. And then just like you did earlier, hey, me too.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and let me ask you, did you feel weird telling me that initially?
I'm like, oh my gosh, is she going to think I'm weird? Like, who is worried about asking for a fitting room?
No, I found that totally relatable.
Okay, good. Glad.
But see, I guess that's even because I do the same thing, even though I have been vulnerable, and I've never been criticized for being vulnerable. Usually people are like, oh, that happened to me too. It like ends up being very relatable, but it still creates fear in me because it's like, oh, I am being seen.
There are a lot of very deep conversations that are hard to have right off the bat when you meet somebody new. So this is like a very interesting format because I've never met you before.
Right. I knew this was a safe space going in.
Thank you. All right. So we kind of touched on this a little bit more, but 5 years ago, you hit your rock bottom moment and that changed everything for you. What did that season look like for you? What were the thoughts that kept you there? And how did you first begin to crawl your way out of this hole?
Yeah, I like that you describe it like that. Well, what gave me hope, which is what well, actually, there were two things. I needed like some glimmer of hope, and I started working with my coach, and I was like, okay, this is definitely what I need. Because basically, I had all these limiting beliefs, and I was like behaving a certain way, but he taught me how to change my behaviors in a more self-respecting and self-trusting way, which in turn, uh, basically changed my beliefs so I could actually start believing that I deserve to be loved. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was a really long journey, but only because I had started from rock bottom and it actually did feel like crawling out of a hole at first. But what really helped me through the initial time with him until I could really get to a point where I was like seeing the changes is I had decided, okay, I'm going to write this book and publish it. And again, there was like still some doubts in the back of my mind, but writing that book really gave me a sense of purpose. And I guess that also gave me hope because it's like maybe this is my purpose. Because again, it's like it wasn't my time. And I feel like we're all here for a reason. So I'm like, I'm just going to do whatever I can and hopefully fulfill my purpose while I'm on this life because there eventually will be an expiration date, right? So I'm just going to like live life to the extent, even if that means doing scary things, like allowing myself to be seen.
I love that. So, how can you start? I mean, I think we just kind of talked about this, but how do you think we can start normalizing these bad day truths instead of posting these highlight reels? Then when you're in it and you're starting to learn how to dig yourself out and that it's still painful when you learn how to grow.
Yeah. I don't know if it's ever going to be normalized on social media, but in terms of conversation with friends, this is what I recommend to people, and I've done this myself, and I find this to be effective. But so, say I'm having a bad day, I do think it helps to talk to someone because, like, for me, like, how I ended up spiraling is because I wasn't telling anyone anything. And then, of course, COVID, I was like totally isolated. But if and another reason always had reservations about having the conversations is because I didn't want to seem like a burden, especially because everyone else seemed so happy. And then I felt like I would be raining on their parade if I'm all anxious or however I'm feeling. But I think the best way to approach those conversations is like, say I call you up and I'm like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Do you have the space to listen? Which is so critical because I think we've been on the receiving end of someone just like not asking that question and then emotionally dumping on you. And then you're dealing with your own things. And then it's like, that's not effective either. So, number one, and also I left this part out, like having a safe person to talk to, because not everyone, even if you ask that question, not everyone is open or safe to be talking about these things with. But I think most people have at least one person, but just asking them if they're, you know, if they have the capacity, because and I've had conversations with people, it's like not today, but they will promise a time frame in the future. So, and again, if it's a safe person, it's not like that they're ignoring you. They just don't have the capacity to hold space for you in that moment.
You said a couple of things that I really liked. So, yes, to the safe people. And you know exactly who those are, especially
Yeah.
if you have multiple friends, because one person may be the person that you go out and have lovely dinner conversation, but it's never anything deep, right?
Yep.
You want that friend who can hold space for your grief and not try and fix you.
Yes. And that's another thing because sometimes, and I get it, because again, I think I've been this person in situations. I think some people may still try to like fix the situation, especially if you're feeling sad. But again, you can just communicate to them like, hey, I'm not looking for solutions. I just need to vent. Like that's also an effective way to state like, because it can feel overwhelming when someone's like trying to get you out of the state and you just want to be. So I find that's an effective statement to say to people if they're trying to fix how you're feeling.
So I was watching this video. I think it was Simon Sinek that had it on there, but he was saying like he was having dinner with a friend who was in a really bad place. And he's like, well, why didn't you reach out? And she goes, well, I did. And he's like, this text message that says, hey, do you want to have dinner?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, that one. He's like, I didn't know. And there's a study that says that people need to be seen, and all it takes is 8 minutes for them to like feel like they were witnessed until you can give them time to have a fuller conversation.
Yeah.
And so I sent this to my friend because my phrase is usually like, hey, I need a hug. I'm not having a great day.
Oh, I like
And
that.
so if I ever send them, sorry, go ahead.
No, I like that too as like an opener. Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
And so if I ever tell him, hey, I need a hug, he knows Celeste needs her 8 minutes. I'm going to call her when I have a few, and then like we'll hash it out later on, like deeper.
Love that. I'm going to start using that. Yeah. And then you just communicate up front, like, hey, if I ever text you this, this is what it means. I love
Like
that.
code word.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in that season, what did you discover about self-worth and that you wish every woman knew sooner? If you could put one truth in the hands of every one of our listeners here, what would it be?
That self-worth comes from you. And even deeper than that, like you are born with self-worth. It's inherent. We are all worthy. And nobody can take that away from you. I made this mistake, and I know so many other women do. We put our worth in other people's hands, especially romantic relationships, but also work, family, etc. And no one else can take away your worth because it's inherently part of who you are.
Is there a moment when you recognized for the first time that you were worthy? Like, is there a moment that you remember feeling that?
The only specific like moment, because it was gradual over time for sure, but I just remember there being this moment, and this is the reason my coaching program is actually called Shine from the Inside. But I remember there was a moment where like I was like just so happy and full of love that like my chest, it almost felt like the sun was shining because it was like warm and expansive. And it was like, oh, like that's inside of me already. I just rekindled that light, and now I'm basking in my own light, and I don't need anything outside of me to, bask in my own light, basically. So there was like that moment of like, oh, I can shine from the inside.
I've had a couple of those moments and I've never been able to explain it. I was calling it like liquid bliss
Yeah, it's
almost.
hard to explain, right? Because when I'm like shine from the inside, people like think it's all woo woo, but it's like, no, that's like when you love yourself, you can feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this overwhelming happiness where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm alive.
Yeah. And the crazy part about the feeling is that it's generated from you because there's nothing external going on around you to make you feel that way. It's like, oh, this is who I am and this is how I'm supposed to feel.
I love that. All right. So we're going to talk about our masks of perfection. So many high achieving women know how to look strong on the outside. I know you know this already, but while we're quietly falling apart on the inside, why do you think we hide behind these masks of perfectionism and performance? And what did it take for you to finally start unmasking yourself?
So I think we do it because it's, for whatever reason, not socially acceptable. Especially because I feel like are certain environments, like we already talked about social media, but even in the workplace, it might be deemed as like unprofessional if, you have some emotions for, like heaven forbid you like have feelings. So it like, because even me, like well into my healing journey, I still had a corporate job. And that's when I really started to feel a huge misalignment because to some extent you have to wear a professional mask. And I hated it so much. So there are a lot of society pressures is the reason why. And what was the second part of the question?
What did it take for you to finally start unmasking yourself?
Honestly, it took just feeling like shit for so many years because again, like I hit rock bottom and it was just like such a huge turning point because it's like I'm tired of always and it gets exhausting like to always put on a mask that is not authentic at all. It's I think in a way whether you're intuitive or not, there is a feeling of disconnect. If you're not intuitive, I don't know how to describe it, but I always just like had this feeling that I was uncomfortable and like it didn't feel right. If you're intuitive, you'll know what that means. But I think like the main like symptom is just like exhaustion and the chronic unhappiness and unfulfillment, and then perpetuating the cycle by always chasing the things outside of yourself. But I was just basically sick and tired of being sick and tired. But again, I didn't really know how to change it until I started working with my coach. So that was the best investment I have ever made in myself.
I love that. I have two thoughts.
Okay.
The first one is that the mask that I felt like I always had to wear in a professional setting, and obviously I work from home now, but when I was going into a job, and you would just be going about your business, wandering around, and I don't know what face I had on, but it was most of the time men would come up to you and be like, "Hey, smile."
Yes.
And I'd be like, "Why? Like, do I not look pretty? Do you think that it's going to change the way that my day is going? Like, I'm okay." But having to put that mask on, and it's amazing how many people tell you to do that.
There was a meme going around during COVID. Obviously, a woman started it, but it was like the best part of wearing masks is that men aren't telling you to smile.
Like, I miss that.
Oh, it was
Man,
great. It was like one of the most relatable things I've ever seen.
that is hilarious. Okay, my second one is trying to find a way to explain what it's like when you're walking around with that mask and feeling so disconnected. Have you ever seen Black Mirror?
No.
Okay, there is this thing that they do where you can get blocked by people, and then like everyone has this little implant inside of them, and they literally just cannot see you. You're like a blurred out person
Yeah.
wandering around. And I'm like, that's what it feels like because you're not seen. People like stay away from you,
Yeah.
and like you just don't feel good in the world. You feel like nothing resonates.
I love that. I'm going to start using that. And also, that made me think of something else because you said you don't feel seen. But then I don't know if you can relate to this, but even though you're doing it to yourself because you're wearing the mask, so you're not being seen, but then you also feel resentful about that. It's like, well, they can't see that I'm, you know, actually happy or whatever is going on behind the scenes. It's like, well, why could they? It's kind of like the text that like, hey, can you have dinner? Which was actually an SOS cry for help. And then you feel
Yes.
resentful, like, why didn't they understand? It's like, well, because you're not telling anyone.
Yes. So my journey of the whole feeling seen thing was when somebody actually called me out literally 2 weeks before my wedding, and they go, "Hey, Celeste, have you ever felt seen?" And I just cried on the streets of Vegas. Um, and I was like, I don't feel like I've ever been seen because I've been wearing a mask for so long that not only do I not know who I am, but now nobody else knows who I am. And so I really am unseen until I can see myself.
That's so profound. Yeah. And I've had other conversations about healing where within the conversation where there's me or the other person, it's actually an identity change because you've been wearing the mask and people pleasing, and you have to just learn to basically become yourself again, which is a different identity.
It is a very strange sensation of like walking away from an old life and then actually asking the questions of who is Celeste and
Yeah.
having to go through the motion of figuring it out.
Yeah. Because it's like you're rediscovering yourself, which is another reason I call my coaching program Shine from the Inside, because usually that person is who you were as a child before you started developing all the limiting beliefs and whatever. So it's not, and another reason why like therapy or like traditional self-help had never worked for me, because I feel like it's marketed as fixing yourself or changing yourself. But really healing is just coming back home to yourself. And not only that, accepting that version of yourself for who you are. And that's how you are
You're
seeing
using
who you are.
you're using all of the same words that I would use. I feel like just the pink and everything is
Yeah,
just
I know.
kind of
We've been bonding
serendipitous today.
since like the second we met.
I love it. Okay, well, this is a good segue into the next question. You've said that love is created from the inside out, and that is such a powerful shift. How did you come to trust that truth in your own life? And how can women begin building that kind of inner safety and love?
That's a good question because for me, it required help mostly because I think everyone has their core wound, meaning, I could have named, or I could now in hindsight name like 10 different things. Like I had a fear of abandonment, blah, blah, blah. But if you keep peeling back the layers of the onion, there's usually one core wound that everyone has. So that could be different for everyone. So I'll just describe it in my situation and hope that it resonates. And if it doesn't, maybe you can apply it to your situation. But my core wound was that I didn't deserve to be loved. So, and I think that's why I struggled for so long, because it's like, how do you change that belief? Especially because, again, your beliefs dictate your behaviors. So I was behaving in a way that would attract people who weren't treating me lovingly. So, so in my mind, I'm like, I don't believe this, and here's evidence that it's true, and, all the things. So I personally needed professional help to pull me out of it because, and again, the way he did it, he never explained it to me as I'm going to teach you how to love yourself. He basically taught me how to behave. Like he calls it being a functional adult. So basically I learned how to be an adult at, at 40 years old, but it was changing my behavior. So if I'm setting a boundary, that's acting in a self-respecting way. And if I continue the practice of setting boundaries, then I'm continuing to respect myself. If I, because I used to be the person, I would always ignore my intuition and I wouldn't trust my intuition, but I learned to develop my intuition and actually listen to it. So that developed the habit of self-trust. So by practicing these behaviors, slowly over time, and it was slow, but there are some quick wins early on where you can like gain that confidence and motivation to keep going. But over time, it was like my brain started making these connections like, yeah, I do deserve to be respected. Yeah, I do deserve to trust myself. And yeah, I do deserve to be treated better. And eventually, yes, I do deserve to be loved.
It's really interesting how you talk about like it being a new identity, because it kind of is. It's like
Yeah.
an ending, like rock bottom is kind of an ending of the life that you had before and the person that you were before. And then it allows you to have this new beginning, this new introduction into your true identity.
Yeah, the day I overdosed on the pills was October 17th, 2020. And I always call that my rebirth day for that reason. Because it's like I basically started an entire new life. It almost feels like, have you ever read or heard of like the parallel realities of self? Where it's like there's other versions of you on different timelines.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like I did this like whole total shift to the point where it was like I woke up as a completely new person on that day.
You just jumped like multiple worlds
Yeah,
over and
because usually, like, I don't think he recommends this in the book, but like he recommend, like, say I want to be a billionaire, I don't just automatically jump to that timeline. There's like steps, but I feel like I did the huge jump.
that. Okay, so this is kind of the first steps to reclaiming your glow then. If a listener is hearing this and feels like she's at her own breaking point, maybe it's not a dramatic rock bottom, but it's that quiet ache of I'm not enough or this doesn't feel good. What is the very first step that she can take to start reclaiming her glow?
In general, get help. And I know that sounds like really basic and vague, but I think that looks different for everyone. And first of all, before I go into that, the reason I say that is because one of the reasons I share my story is because I had to hit rock bottom before I changed. And I don't think I have to explain how unpleasant that was. and how hard it was to come out of that place. Whereas in hindsight, I'm like, well, like, for instance, when my dad died and I was in that period of heavy grieving, and that's one of the first times I tried traditional therapy. And it wasn't working. But instead of finding something else, I think I just like decided I was a hopeless case or whatever. Or this is how I'm supposed to be feeling. Um, so number one, if you're already feeling that way, because you just described how it feels, like, don't get to rock bottom, get help now. And yeah, there's traditional therapy, there are coaches, there's support groups. And again, I had tried therapy and it didn't work. So if you try something and it doesn't work, just try something else. There are so many healing modalities these days. Like, there has to be someone who can help you. Like, I would find that so hard to believe.
And that's the fun thing, right? Well, I guess it's not fun in that period of time because you really just want something to work.
Yeah.
But there are so many different resources out there now. Like when I started figuring out who I was, life coaches and different books and podcasts and
Yeah.
whatever, there are so many different means at your disposal.
Plus, I do think people are talking more about this stuff now. Like, it's not as widespread as I would like it to be, but yeah, there are more coaches, there are more podcasts talking about it. So I do think there are many more resources than there used to be.
It's funny, when I was on the dating apps, people would be like, I'm in therapy, you better be in therapy too. Or they would say something like therapy is sexy
Yeah.
or something. And
But it's like, yeah,
giggle.
but
I'm
are
like,
you
this
working
is,
on yourself?
yeah, or you just, is it for show? All right. Our last question today before we go is, like I said before, my healing is your healing is built on the belief that healing does not happen in a vacuum. And when women hear your story, what do you want them to walk away with, especially those who feel completely alone right now?
I would tell them that you are worthy of living a happy and fulfilling life, because I think one of the reasons I didn't get help for so long is because, first of all, I had never known that sense of happiness and fulfillment, but also I just didn't think it was available for me. I'm like, oh, I just thought I was supposed to feel gross because, again, I didn't love myself. So it's like, oh, this is how it is. And I guess I didn't really care much to change it. But you, and trust me, if I can do it, anyone can do it. But you are worthy of feeling good, and most importantly, feeling good about yourself. So again, if you see yourself going down this path, you don't need to hit rock bottom. You're worthy of getting the help now, because trust me, like, there is hope for the future, and there is a happy and fulfilling version of you that's waiting for you to jump into that timeline.
Amazing. So if anybody wants to reach out to you or get your book, do you want to tell them how to do that?
Yes, my website is runninginslippers.com, and Running in Slippers is the name of my book. It's available on Amazon, Kindle, and audiobook, which all of that information is on the website. There's also the same website information about my coaching program, which again is Shine from the Inside. And I help high achieving women stop chasing love and stop performing for external approval so they can finally feel happy, confident, and love for who they are. I do offer a free call for first-time clients. It's a 60-minute session, which is a long time, and we'll work on whatever you're struggling with, and we'll do as much as we can on the call. And at the end, I'll give you my recommendations for going forward, because my program is not for everyone, but the goal is to get you help, because again, there's so many resources. I know other coaches, and I can provide advice on other resources to help. Oh, and lastly, I have been going on podcast. So if you say you heard me on this podcast, I do have a bonus offer for you. It's free, whether you go with my coaching program or not. So
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Angie. I will post all of that on the description as well. So if you want a good link to it, you can go ahead and grab it in the description. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
thank you. You too.
Okay. So what I loved the most about Angie's story is the reminder that rock bottom is not the end. Most of the time, it is a new beginning. When the masks crack, when the scripts that the world has handed you stop working, when the performance no longer protects you, that is when you finally have the chance to rebuild from your own truth. Angie's courage reminds us that there's something that we all need to hear. That worth is not something that we earn, it is something that we remember. Healing doesn't mean we become someone new. We are returning to the women that we've always meant to be. The one beneath the masks. The one before the world told you who you should be. So if you're listening right now and you feel that quiet ache of not enoughness, please know this. You are not broken and you are not behind. You are simply in a season of becoming. The season of becoming the woman you were always meant to be. If you are ready to stop dimming your light and start connecting with women who are on the same journey as you, I would love to invite you into the Radiant Women's Collective. This is something that I'm launching in January. It is an online membership space for truth-telling, connection, and becoming the most authentic version of yourself. So head to my website, www.myhealingisyourhealing.com, to learn more about the program and sign up for the waitlist. I also encourage you to tag me on Instagram at myhealingyourhealing to share what resonated with you from today's episode. I'm also accepting guests. So if you feel like you have a story or you would love to have a conversation with other women and deep dive about a topic like success or family, go there and sign up for it. I would love to chat with you. So remember that your story in this healing process is just beginning. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and remember, you were never meant to dim your light. Thanks for tuning in and being here, for healing out loud, and for walking this path beside me. If this episode cracked something open or helped you remember a part of yourself, pass it on and share it with someone you love. For more support, free resources, or the next steps to your journey, head over to my website, myhealingisyourhealing.com. And if you loved today's conversation, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your words help this space grow and help more women find their way home to themselves. If I was your muse today, then my healing is your healing. Until next time.